Divine Deliverance, the miraculous journey of Deborah, Barak Jael's faith-filled triumph. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, when the skies seemed to weep for Israel, the land lay shackled under the cruel dominion of King Jabin of Canaan. Fear darkened every doorstep, as Sisera, his fierce general, led a terrifying army equipped with iron chariots, casting shadows of dread upon the hearts of the Israelites. Yet, in the midst of despair, hope glimmered like the dawn's first light. Deborah, adorned in the robes of a prophetess and judge, emerged as a courageous beacon against the looming darkness. Under the sacred palm tree of her dwelling, the voices of the people echoed, seeking guidance from Yahweh through her wise counsel. One fateful morning, as the sun kissed the hills of Mount Ephraim, a word from the Lord pierced the stillness. Deborah felt the divine stir within her spirit. He commanded her to summon Barak, a mighty leader of Israel, to speak of deliverance. Go, the Lord instructed, gather an army and lead it against Sisera at Mount Tabor. With a heart heavy yet resolute, Deborah set off to find Barak, knowing the gravity of her mission. Upon reaching Barak, she proclaimed the divine command, her voice steady yet filled with unyielding urgency. The Lord commands you to gather 10,000 men from Naphtali and Zebulun. But Barak hesitated, fear wrapping around his heart like a brittle vine. If you go with me, I will go, he confessed, revealing his reluctance to confront such a formidable foe without her prophetic presence. We will surely attain victory, Deborah declared, unwavering. But know that the glory of this battle will be won through the hands of a woman. With faith tethered to divine promise, the two prepared to face the forces of darkness. Suddenly, the winds of fate shifted. As Israel's war cry ascended to the heavens, a fierce storm erupted, darkening the skies and unleashing torrents of rain. The heavens roared, and the earth trembled with divine displeasure. Sisera's magnificent chariots became ensnared in the mire, their iron wheels rendered useless against the muddy landscape. In chaos, Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled on foot, heart pounding with terror. His path crossed with that of Jael, a woman of the Kenite Israel's allies. Welcoming him into her tent, she offered hospitality, a blanket for warmth and a drink to quench his thirst. Within these sacred walls, a deeper understanding stirred within her heart, ignited by the Spirit of the Lord. Jael knew her divine calling, she could not turn away from what God had ordained. As Sisera succumbed to exhaustion, resting on the soft cushions of the tent, the tension escalated. Jael's hand grasped the tent peg, her resolve ignited by the prophetic words of Deborah. Would she fulfill the prophecy that proclaimed a woman would bring victory? In courageous defiance, she silenced her fears as she prepared to act. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the storm raged and victory loomed on the horizon, anticipation hung thick in the air. Would the people of Israel awaken from their shadows of oppression? Would Jael fulfill her destiny as an instrument of divine judgment? The questions loomed large, holding the promise of God's sovereign plan, waiting to unfold with magnificent power. As the oppressive clouds loomed heavy in the sky, Jael felt the rushing pulse of destiny resonate within her. She knew the moment was at hand, a divine orchestration that none but the Almighty could conceive. Drawing courage from the depths of her spirit, she approached Sisera, sleeping unwittingly, as she clutched the tent peg, her heart ardent with the resolve of her forebears. Arise, she spoke softly yet firmly, kneeling before him, the weight of her mission pressing down like the mist upon the earth. Glancing quickly about the tent to ensure no eyes bore witness, she took a breath that tasted of urgency and awaited his awakening. Sisera stirred, his eyes fluttering open to see the shadow of a woman hovering over him. Who are you? He gasped, confusion washing over his features. Where are my men? You are safe here, Jael assured him, her voice steady despite the tempest raging outside. The enemies of your king have been scattered in chaos, and I have sheltered you. She knew the truth weighed heavy, yet the Lord could turn even the mightiest of warriors' hearts to stone within their chests. With a pitiful groan, Sisera accepted her hospitality, oblivious to the divine purpose that had entwined their destinies. Jael offered him food and a skin of milk, her hands trembling not from fear, but from the intensifying thrill of fulfilling the prophecy spoken by Deborah. As he drank, weariness enveloped him once more, and he allowed himself to sink into a placid, unsuspecting sleep. Jael stood tall, heart racing with righteous indignation and divine purpose. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she raised the tent peg high. "O Lord, grant me strength," she whispered, her prayer rising like incense before him, seeking the empowering grace of the Almighty. With one decisive thrust, she drove the tent peg through his temple, pinning him to the ground as a swift silence fell over the storm, leaving only the distant echoes of thunder and the spluttering rain. In a heartbeat, Sisera, the terror of the Israelites, had met his end, the prophecy fulfilled through a woman as courageous as Jael stood. She felt the exhilaration of victory wash over her, a powerful surge from the Lord. It was not just her triumph, it echoed across the land of Israel, the dawn of liberation breaking over the oppressed nation. Meanwhile, at Mount Tabor, Barak and his men pursued the remnants of Sisera's army, emboldened by the confusion wrought by the storm and the divine hand guiding their steps. The warriors of Israel, once shackled by fear, now surged forward with faith ignited, driven by the Spirit in their veins. Each swing of their swords drew closer to the ultimate deliverance of their people. Word of Sisera's fall swiftly spread among the camp, and Barak, breathless with revelation and holy fervor, raced to Jael's tent, yearning to witness the hand of God revealed. When he entered, the scene struck him with awe. Jael, standing resolute amidst the stillness, her hand still poised in victory. "Blessed are you among women, Jael," he declared, recognizing her as the true heroine of this day. "God's deliverance has come, indeed, for the glory of his promise shines through you." In that sacred moment, the hearts of the Israelites swelled with hope, knowing that their cries had been heard and that the Lord would reign in their midst once more. They lifted their voices in unison, praising Yahweh who fought their battles, yet, even as victory was drawn nigh, within the heavens a deeper plan unfurled. Deborah felt the stirrings of prophecy echo in her soul, whispering of future trials that would come upon Israel, a call to raise up further leaders in their time of need. God's sovereign hand was still at work, bringing forth not only deliverance but the refining of a nation. And as the people began to rejoice, the mysteries of the Lord's will lingered what lay ahead for a nation chosen to bear his name. The journey had just begun. As dawn broke over the hills of Canaan, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the dissipating storm clouds, illuminating the land and revealing the remnants of battle. The cries of victory resounded in the camp of Israel, as the warriors celebrated the miraculous hand of God that had delivered them from their oppressors. Barak, heart ablaze with the fervor of triumph, stood at the forefront with Jael beside him, the weight of Sisera's defeat igniting a fervent hope within the hearts of his men. "See," he proclaimed, "the Lord has fought for us. Let every man who has fought this day rejoice, for our enemies have fallen as leaves before the wind." Yet, within Barak's heart lay an echo of unease, for he knew that this victory, while glorious, was but a chapter in the unfolding narrative of Israel's fate. The Philistines remained, and their hearts were still fixed in rebellion against the God of Israel. Barak turned towards Jael, who now reflected both strength and solemnity, her heart burdened with the weight of a prophecy that had yet to reveal its full measure. "Jael," he said, lowering his voice to a reverent whisper, "what do you sense from the Lord's hand upon us?" "There are still shadows gathering in the distance." Jael, her spirit attuned to the whispers of the Almighty, replied, "The Lord has indeed delivered his people, Barak, yet his voice calls to me with solemn truths. We have been freed from Sisera, but our deliverance must be tempered with vigilance. For our safety does not rest in one victory alone, but in our continued faithfulness to him." As Barak pondered her words, Deborah approached, her countenance radiant with the light of divine wisdom. "Leaders of Israel, hear my words. The Lord has performed wonders this day. He has fulfilled his promise through courage and faith, yet his ways are mysterious, and much remains ahead. We must never forget the call to righteousness and covenant faithfulness, for the Lord shall refine us as silver in the fire." The men of Israel drew closer, their hearts kindling with renewed commitment as Deborah spoke, words steeped in prophetic clarity. As we rejoice in this deliverance, we must also prepare our hearts. For the Lord has plans for his nation, a path that leads through trials, a journey towards deeper faith. Barak, stirred by the fervor of his leaders, rallied the men. "Let us therefore cleanse our hearts and prepare for that which is to come. We will not rest until every breath in this land draws near to Yahweh." The sound of their declarations mingled with shouts of praise, creating a symphony of faith that rose up to the heavens, a fragrant offering before the Lord. Yet, lurking in the shadows of the camp, the whisper of darkness felt ever more palpable. Even as the sun rose, a distant rumble could be heard, not from thunder, but from the encroaching far-off nations, stirring against Israel once more. A palpable tension filled the air, for the promise of peace was contested by the reality of warfare. As the people began to disperse and prepare for new tasks, the stage was set for Israel's next challenge. God's mighty hand, already evident, stirred with anticipation of greater works to unfold. Deborah, sensing the weight of the coming conflict, raised her hands in prayer, beckoning God's guidance. "Lord of hosts," she cried, "may your will be done. Give us courage for what lies ahead, strengthen our hearts for the battles unwaged." And in that moment, the heavens shifted, as the voice of the Almighty echoed, "Fear not, for I am with you, I have plans to prosper you, to give you hope and a future." Thus began a new chapter for Israel, one marked by struggle yet illuminated by divine promise. The journey towards fulfillment was fraught with peril, yet within the depths of uncertainty lay the seeds of faith, courage, and an everlasting hope. But little did they know, sorrows and triumphs awaited that could reshape their very understanding of deliverance. In their hearts, the people pondered their victory was a merely preparation for a profound journey, intricately woven into the tapestry of God's sovereign plan. What would be required of them as they sought to walk faithful with the one who called them out of darkness into his marvelous light? The answer, veiled in divine mystery, beckoned just beyond the horizon. As Israel stood on the precipice of the unknown, the winds of change swept across the plains of Canaan, stirring both hearts and minds. The remnants of battle were yet fresh, yet the warrior's spirit was prone to forgetfulness, as it had been before. The men strategized their next course of action, while the women gathered to share in the burdens and the blessings of the day. The atmosphere thrummed with anticipation, for victory does not exist in isolation, it demands continued vigilance. Deborah, a prophetess and judge, felt a stirring within her spirit. This was not merely a moment of victory but a divine pause, a call to reflect on all that had transpired. For the heart of man is fickle, she thought, and we must constantly anchor our souls to the one who reigns. She gathered the leaders of Israel once more, her voice a thread that wove them into a tapestry of divine intent. "Gather, O Israel," she proclaimed, her voice trembling with the weight of God's purpose. "The path ahead will not be devoid of strife. Sisera has fallen, but the lords of the Philistines gather in council. They plot and conspire even now, seeking to strike again at our covenant." Barak, invigorated but unyielding, raised his voice. "What then shall we do? Shall we take the fight to them while their plans fester in the shadows? We must not allow their animosity to grow unchecked." "Indeed, Barak," Deborah replied, her eyes gleaming with divine insight. "Listen closely, for the Lord has revealed a path that is both arduous and redemptive. He will deliver us again, but we must be prepared to follow not in self-reliance, but in faithfulness to his commands." As the discussions unfolded, Jael listened intently, her heart resonating with the truth she had encountered, knowing that her act had been a part of God's grand design, a seed planted in a pivotal moment. A recollection stirred within her. The prophecy whispered to her in her dreams that victory would not be a singular event but a series of encounters, each intimate and interwoven with God's everlasting purpose. That night, as the camp settled, the vibrancy of the embers flickered against the darkness. Barak stood under the cloak of stars, reflecting on the weighty discourse of the day. "Lord," he whispered, "you have granted us victory over Sisera, yet we stand in the shadow of greater foes. How shall we advance against the rising tide? Then, a gentle breeze stirred about him, and the voice of the Almighty broke the silence. Barak, take heart, I am preparing you. The task set before you is not merely to fight against flesh and blood, but to wield the sword of righteousness. Each battle shall be a reflection of your faith in me. Anoint yourselves with my word and forge ahead, and I will fight for you. With the dawn's light creeping upon them, the warriors of Israel gathered once more, their eyes aflame with renewed faith. They inhaled the morning air, the fragrance of resolve mingling with the aroma of sacrifice. Strengthen your hearts. Barak called. For our journey is not solely to conquer but to fulfill his purpose among the nations. We are instruments for his glory. As they lifted their voices in praise, resounding declarations echoed through the valleys, but a dark undercurrent lingered. The Philistines were drawing closer, their animosity as palpable as the air itself. Little did the warriors know that they were being drawn toward a divine confrontation that would reshape not only their understanding of faith but also the narrative of their people, and as they prepared to take the next step, the clouds gathered on the horizon, shrouding the future in mystery. What awaited them was veiled in his purposes. Beyond the battlefield was a manifold grace ready to reveal itself in ways they had yet to imagine. Thus, with each breath, the air thickened with divine promise. The next chapter awaited a journey demanding not only of their strength but of their unwavering faith, as they ventured into the depths of God's sovereign plan. As the sun rose radiant over the plains of Canaan, the warriors of Israel prepared to take their stand, hearts resonating with the promise of God. Barak summoned his troops once more. His voice rang out clear and unwavering, "Prepare yourselves, men of Israel. For the Lord has commanded us to rise against the Philistines. Let us bear the light of his truth into the shadow of their malice." The soldiers gathered, their faces alight with resolute determination, echoing the faith that surged within them. "Who shall go with me?" Barak implored, and they responded as one, "We will follow you, Barak. For the Lord is with us." Deborah stood among them, her eyes reflecting the heavenly realms, radiating with divine presence. "It is time," she proclaimed, "let us seek the counsel of the Lord as we march forward. His words have often been a lamp unto our feet and a light to our path." Psalm 119 verse 105. We shall not march without his guidance. As they set out, an unsettling feeling hung in the air, a mix of hope and apprehension. Each breath seemed laden with anticipation, and the rhythm of their footsteps echoed the heartbeat of their covenant. Little did they know, the enemy had already laid its snares, plotting their defeat in clandestine meetings beneath the ancient oaks. On the other side of the valley, the lords of the Philistines gathered. These Israelites, emboldened by their recent victory, must be dealt with swiftly, one chief declared, his eyes narrowing in determination. "We shall combine our strength, we will phase out their light with the darkness of our resolve. Let their God not consume us as he did Sisera." In the hidden alcoves of the mountains, Jael prepared her household, aware that the battle was more than flesh against flesh. "Lord of hosts," she whispered, "you have seen the hand that moved through me. I await your command, for your purposes are entwined with my life's thread." The march of Israel continued through the undulating hills until they found themselves before the Philistine encampment. The sound of distant murmurs filled the air, a cacophony of intent and strategy. "Behold," Barak said, "the enemy draws near. We shall strategize the hour of our advance. Deborah, guide us in the words of the Lord." "Fear not, for I hear him," Deborah affirmed, standing resolutely amidst them. "The Lord speaks of confusion among our foes. Let each man take courage, for the victory shall be ours. For thus says the Lord, I will go out before you and will give Sisera and all his chariots and his army into your hand." Judges 4 verse 7. As the Israelite warriors gathered their weapons, murmurs of faith ignited like wildfire. Their hands gripped swords more firmly, their faith sharpening as they acknowledged the assurance of divine favor. And yet, darkness loomed, the breath of the Philistines thickened the air, an ominous shroud of uncertainty settled. But just at that moment, God thundered from the heavens, sending a storm as fierce as the hearts he ignited in his people. The winds howled, and rain began to pour. Oh, how the heavens declared his glory! As the ground turned to muck beneath the feet of the enemy, a sense of panic rippled through the assembled ranks of the Philistines. "What treachery is this?" they cried, losing heart amidst the downpour. In that instant, Barak rallied his men. "Now, warriors! Strike forth, for the Lord has cast the enemy into confusion. Let us reclaim our land." For as God had promised, the battle was not theirs alone. His very hand was upon the shield of Israel, raising them in triumph over the overwhelming odds. Unbeknownst to them, the weaving of divine providence continued. For a plan more profound, a revelation yet unspent was stirring, ready to give the faithful a new glimpse of God's boundless glory. The air pulsated with the depths of divine possibility. The people of Israel had barely begun to witness the full measure of his sovereign plan. What further wonders would unfold? What greater acts of deliverance awaited in the hidden chambers of God's will? The sacred tapestry was unfolding, and the next thread of divine revelation awaited. As the storm raged on, the hearts of the Israelites surged with a fierce determination, emboldened by Deborah's faith-filled proclamation. The rain fell heavily, a divine baptism, refreshing the land and cleansing the fears that threatened to overwhelm them. "Arise, O Israel! For our God fights for us," Barak shouted, lifting his sword toward the heavens. The sound of clashing steel echoed through the mountains as Israel surged forward, a living testament to the promise of victory spoken through Deborah. On the battlefield, confusion reigned among the Philistines. Their chariots, usually the terror of enemy ranks, sank deep into the mud. "What sorcery is this?" a commander barked, trying to regain control over his trembling men. Fear gripped their hearts as they realized the hand of God was moving in judgment against them. With every charge from the Israelites, the Philistines faltered. "Press on!" an Israelite yelled, confidence swelling in the wake of God's providential intervention. The skies darkened further, lightning flashing, illuminating acts of ferocity as the warriors fought not for mere survival, but for the covenant promise of their ancestors. Yet in the midst of the chaos, Sisera, the captain of the Philistines, recognized the futility of his position. His heart raced as he initiated a retreat through the tempest, seeking refuge among the people that lived in the nearby confines of the tent encampments. He desperately clung to the hope of escape as he sped through the refuge of the wilderness. As the battle raged on, the heart of Jael quickened at the sight of Sisera fleeing. "This is the moment," she whispered, her spirit aligning with the divine purpose. The tent she dwelled in stood as a sanctuary, and she prayed, "O Lord of heaven's armies, guide my hand." Sisera, weary and soaked from the unyielding rain, stumbled into her tent. "Please, give me water," he gasped, his voice a shadow of command turned to feeble request. "And let me hide from the wrath of Israel." "Come in and rest," Jael replied, ushering him under the safety of her covering. With swift resolve, she offered him milk, soothing his exhaustion, while her heart was stirred to act. As Sisera reclined exhausted, his eyes fluttered shut. Jael took up a tent peg and a hammer, her heart trembling with the gravity of her calling. "What you intended for harm, O Lord, I shall fulfill," she murmured, ready to confront the dark shadow that dared to plague her people. Outside, the battle's clamor continued, punctuated by shouts of triumph for Israel. Deborah, sensing the victory nearing its peak, turned to Barak. "The end is upon us, we shall see the work of the Lord displayed." As Jael positioned the peg with divine purpose, another roar of thunder resounded, drowning the battlefield in its power. She struck swiftly, fulfilling the prophecy as Sisera lay defeated. The very hand of God was now visible through her act of valor, the culmination of a divine plan that intertwined their destinies, and in that moment, the heavens opened, and light spilled forth upon the valley. "O give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever." The people began to chant, their voices uniting in a hymn of praise for the God who rescues and delivers, but even as victory filled the air, the earth stirred with deeper mysteries yet unveiled. What consequence would arise from this act of devotion and bravery? For in the tapestry of redemption, every thread woven was seen by the Almighty. Jael had become a central figure in this unfolding narrative, and she would not be the last. The hearts of many would soon question the destiny of Israel. What new chapters awaited, when the depths of divine intentions were ready to surface. For in the fabric of history, the sovereign Lord prepared to reveal wonders beyond imagination. And the battle raged on, resounding through the valleys as the Israelites pressed forward with newfound zeal. They were emboldened not only by the promise of victory but by the very presence of the Lord, who fought among them. As the Philistines fled in terror, the strength of the God of Israel filled the hearts of his people. "Pursue them, for the Lord has delivered us," cried Barak, rallying his men, and they surged after the retreating foes, pooling their strength, wielding their swords with holy purpose. They were not simply avenging themselves, they were embracing the destiny bestowed upon them by the covenant they upheld, a promise forged by their forefathers. Meanwhile, Jael stood in her tent, still trembling from the act she had committed. Fear and awe intertwined in her heart as she looked upon the lifeless form of Sisera. She knelt down, whispering, "O Lord, I did not conceive of this great deed in my own understanding, but thy hand guided me in this hour." She felt an unearthly peace wash over her, knowing that she had not merely acted of her own will, but had become an instrument of divine deliverance. News of Sisera's defeat spread through the land like wildfire, reaching even the hearts of those who dwelt in the distant cities. The Israelite women, filled with joy and gratitude, began to celebrate. They danced in unison, their voices lifted high in praise, singing songs that extolled the bravery of Deborah, Barak, and Jael. "Blessed among women is Jael," they sang, the echoes reverberating through the mountains. "She struck down the enemy and brought peace to Israel." The air was electric with the presence of the Spirit, each note a testament to God's unwavering faithfulness. In the midst of this celebration, Deborah sought Barak, her trusted leader. "The Lord has given us the victory. Let us proclaim his greatness from the rooftops," she urged. "For though we were weak, he has shown us his strength." As dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the land, Barak and Deborah led the captives and the warriors to Mount Tabor, a place of remembrance. There, they recounted the story to the people, revealing the greatness of God's deeds and his mercy upon his chosen ones. In that assembly, as the people shouted praises, Deborah took up her harp, her heart filling with the word of the Lord. She began to sing a new song, a song of triumph and deliverance, declaring, "When leaders lead in Israel, when the people freely offer themselves, bless the Lord." But as the praises roared and joy thrummed through Israel's veins, the shadows of desolation still hovered in the land. Sisera had fallen, yet his presence lingered through those who would seek vengeance for the captain's demise. A new fear arose, one that cradled within it the tempests of anger and revenge. Will our victory change our fate? Worried some in hushed tones, while others sought a new leader to fill the void left behind. Deborah sensed their unrest, her spirit troubled. "We must remain vigilant. Our God desires not just victory but faithfulness among us. The path ahead will require our unity." And as she spoke, a deep stirring began to awaken in Israel. For in the hearts of the people, questions blossomed: who would rise among them next? What trials awaited in the wake of this triumph? The land had been touched by the hand of God, but its story was far from complete. Within that moment of unease, as dawn broke anew, the Lord had given a glimpse of his divine tapestry yet unfolding, promising deliverance from the shadows that threatened to reclaim the hearts of his children. The next chapter of Israel's covenant journey was poised to emerge, filled with fate, trials, and the richly woven providence of the Almighty. As the echoes of celebration faded, a somber realization settled upon the people of Israel. The remnants of a great battle still told tales of sorrow and loss, even amidst their triumph. Deborah, discerning the hearts of her people, called for unity and prayer, urging them to offer supplications before the Lord. "Let us gather, O Israel," she proclaimed, her voice ringing with authority. "For our God is not only a God of victory, but also a God of refuge and strength in times of need. We must seek his face continually." Thus, the tribes assembled, Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh drawing near, alongside the steadfast warriors of Ephraim and Zebulun. In the clear light of the sun, they joined together, lifting their hands in surrender and their voices in humble prayer. "Father of our fathers, we acknowledge your greatness," they cried out in unison. Remember your covenant, O Lord. Guide us through the stormy waters that rage against us. Deliver us from those who seek our destruction. As the fervent prayers ascended, clouds gathered in the skies above, darkened by the weight of the people's cries. It was then that the Lord spoke through Deborah once more, a voice that pierced the hearts of the assembly. Fear not. Though darkness encroaches, you are not forsaken. For I will fight for you, I will bring vengeance upon your enemies, she prophesied, her eyes shining like the brightness of dawn. A man from the tribe of Dan stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. What shall we do, prophetess? He asked earnestly. Should we ready ourselves for battle again? Deborah surveyed the congregation, pausing to gauge their readiness. Not yet, she replied, for the Lord desires a different battle fought first, the battle of the heart. Let us cleanse ourselves, turning away from idol worship and setting our hearts right with Him. For a united spirit shall form a wall of protection against the tempest that approaches. In that moment, a prophetess spoke, her voice trembling with divine speech. The Lord has plans for Israel that are not toward evil but towards a hope and a future. Yet it is through trials that your faith must be tempered like gold. She turned her gaze toward the mountains, her eyes wet with tears. Prepare your hearts, for the enemy looms close and shall seek to devour. Barak, hearing these words, felt a surge within him, a renewed strength not drawn from might, but from faith. Let us gather our swords in fervent prayer and unite our hearts in obedience, for our God fights before us, he encouraged, igniting flames of courage in the assembly. As preparations were made, Deborah shared her vision of a sovereign God who commands both nature and nations. For the Lord will cause the rivers to flood and the winds to roar. He shall fight for you, just as he did against Sisera. While the people spoke amongst themselves, a feeling of dread crept back into their hearts, anchoring them in doubt. Yet, Jael, looking from afar, sensed the stirring of hope within her spirit. The Lord has turned the weapons of the enemy into our gain, she declared, thinking of the vanquished Sisera, and thus, I declare, we shall not fear. Days passed, and as the assembly grew stronger in faith, the Philistines began to regroup, plotting revenge against the Israelites. Their anger moved them with tactical precision, and the air thickened with tension. Under the leadership of a wicked ruler who sought to reclaim his dominance, the hearts of the Philistines trembled with wrath. Little did they know, for all their scheming, they were mere pawns in the divine narrative unfolding before the Israelites. Just as the Lord prepared to act, an ominous whisper swept through the hills of Canaan, stirring the faith of the warriors. The time has come, the sages said, for the full tapestry of divine deliverance shall be revealed. And in the sanctum of prayer and trust, the people of Israel stood at the precipice of destiny, unaware that their greatest challenges were but the heralds of a coming miracle, a revelation of God's unfathomable sovereign plan, intricately woven through their trials and triumphs. As dawn broke over the hills of Canaan, a palpable stillness enveloped the land, as if creation itself waited in anticipation of what was to unfold. The tribes of Israel remained gathered, the sound of fervent prayer mingling with the rustling leaves and distant calls from the winged creatures of the skies. Deborah emerged among them, her visage reflecting the resolve birthed from countless supplications. Brothers and sisters, the Lord is preparing to act mightily. She declared, raising her arms toward the heavens. His hand is not shortened that it cannot save, his ear is not dull that it cannot hear. Her voice resonated with the authority bestowed upon her as a prophetess and leader of Israel. In the hearts of the men, especially Barak, a holy fire was ignited. We shall not retreat. He affirmatively cried. For our God is a fierce warrior, and he shall show himself strong on our behalf. Let us fix our eyes upon him and gather our hearts in one accord. With renewed vigor, the Israelites drew closer, their bonds of unity strengthened by a shared resolve. A chorus of voices rose in relentless prayer, as stones of fear were cast into the depths of faith. Yet, amid their fervor, worry skulked among the ranks, a whisper threatening to tarnish their confidence. What if the enemy is too great? Voiced a member of the tribe of Zebulun, his brow drawn tight with anxiety. Deborah turned, her gaze steady and unwavering. Did not the Lord promise us victory? It is not through our might or strategy, but through his power that we will prevail. Her words settled like balm upon their troubled spirits, yet within her own heart, a tremor of burden stirred, revealing the complexities of the battle ahead. As days passed, the drums of war began to echo across the valley, heralding the approach of the Philistines. The dark clouds from the previous days had now parted, replaced with an ominous tension that hung heavy in the air. Deborah sensed the spiritual warfare occurring not only on the plains of battle but within the souls of the gathered warriors. That night, as the moon cast its pale glow over the camp, Deborah sought the Lord in earnest prayer. O God of Israel, show me your ways. Open my eyes to the path we must take. Her heart beat in rhythm with the pulsating light of the stars above, each twinkling gem reminding her of the powerful history entwined with her people. In a vision, she beheld a mighty army, not of men, but of celestial beings descending like fire upon the mountains. The breath of the Lord moved across the earth, stirring the soil and igniting dry bones into vigor as he spoke. I would raise up deliverance in an unconventional way. Trust in me, Deborah, for I am leading my people through the valley of death into the light of restoration. When morning broke, Deborah summoned Barak and the elders together. The Lord has revealed his way to me, she said, her voice carrying the weight of divine revelation. We shall not face the battle alone, the Lord will send his angelic hosts to go before us. Barak's eyes widened, hope igniting anew within his heart. We shall obey, prophetess. We will arise early, and as the sun climbs the sky, so shall we step forward in faith. A great resolve ignited the camp as warriors readied themselves, prayer cascading over swords and shields, believing that the Almighty would deliver them. Yet unbeknownst to the Israelites, the darkness surrounding the Philistines grew thicker, as their wicked leader foreboded a plot as scripted by the hand of the Almighty to fulfill a mystery only he understood. And in the shadows, Jael listened intently to the whispers of the wind, sensing the awakening of a divine plan as she prepared her own heart and home, readying herself for the moment her courage would unfold. The stage was being set for monumental acts of faith and divine intervention, the echoes of which would resound throughout generations. The people went forth in a spirit of earnest expectation, gathering strength not from the arms that bore swords but from the hearts that clung to the promises of their God. For the time had come to confront the darkness and to witness the sovereign plan of the Lord unfold, leaving all who dared to believe standing in awe of his wondrous ways. What lay ahead was a testament to the faith that had kindled in them. A divine confrontation loomed, and they would soon realize that their steps of faith might reveal the very heart of God's promise. As the sun ascended over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the land of Canaan, a majestic stillness enveloped the camp of Israel. The people, now transformed by their recent victory, gathered around Deborah, their leader, who stood as a radiant symbol of hope and divine guidance. With renewed faith, the Israelites awaited the Lord's direction, believing that their struggles had refined them for this very moment. Deborah stepped forward, her countenance imbued with the Spirit of the Almighty, her heart attuned to the sacred whispers of the Lord. Children of Israel, she proclaimed, her voice a clarion call that pierced the dawning light, we have seen the hand of God against Sisera, but this day, we must prepare ourselves for a new beginning. The Philistines loom like a dark cloud on our horizon, yet fear not. For we serve a God who fights our battles and leads us in triumph. With swords gleaming and hearts steadfast, the men of Israel responded in unison, let us go forth under the banner of the Lord. Our victory over Sisera emboldens us, and in his strength, we shall stand. The echoes of their vows resonated through the valleys, igniting a fervor that surged within them like a river of fire. Barak, emboldened by Deborah's assurance, rallied beside her, we shall charge forth to reclaim what is rightfully ours, our faith igniting each step. For the Lord has promised he will fight for us, and in his name, we cannot fail. And so, the warriors of Israel, united and resolute, began their march. The soft grass beneath their feet felt like a carpet woven with faith, each step a testament to their commitment not only to the battle but to one another and to the Lord. On they pressed, trusting the God who had delivered them before. Meanwhile, as the Philistine leaders, enraged and plotting their revenge, convened amidst their encampment, a darkness loomed heavy over them. They too could feel the tension mounting, a storm of divine providence preparing to break. In their arrogance, they underestimated the living God who had wrought miracles in Israel. "Oh, how we shall crush these Israelites!" one chief sneered, oblivious to the swift winds turning in favor of Yahweh. He echoed the threats of rage and revenge, ignorant that God's plans were far grander than mere warfare. They were about hearts reclaimed and destinies fulfilled. Back in the Israelite camp, Deborah raised her arms toward the heavens, fervently seeking guidance amidst the growing storm of battle. In that sacred moment, the Spirit of the Lord fell upon her, imparting a prophetic urgency. The hour has come. It is time to join together in prayer and worship, for our strength lies not in our swords but in the intimacy of our connection with the Almighty, she called, gathering the hearts of the people in a divine moment of surrender. Lifting their voices in a beautiful symphony of faith, the Israelites praised the God of heaven. "You are our refuge, our fortress, in whom we place our trust. Arise, O Lord, let your enemies be scattered." The rhythmic cadence of their prayers infused them with strength. As the very atmosphere thickened with the presence of God as they prayed, a divine strategy began to unfold. Jael, attuned to the Lord's whisper, prepared herself further, recalling the pivotal moment that had set the course for their deliverance. "O God of hosts," she breathed with reverence, "I am but your servant. Use me as an instrument once more, prepare my heart." Then, as if heeding her prayers, the Lord stirred the hearts of the Israelites, prompting them to unite in an unexpected yet profound act of solidarity. Deborah, sensing the moment was ripe, declared, "We shall go forth not merely as soldiers but as a family clothed in the love of God and bound by covenant. The battle belongs to the Lord." And so, with hearts ablaze and minds resolved, they pressed toward the battleground, their faith illuminating the path ahead. The air crackled with divine expectation as they encountered the Philistine army, who stood firm, their arrogance faltering as they caught sight of a people united under the banner of the living God. Barak led the charge, a triumphant roar escaping his lips, urging the men onward. "Look, the Lord has descended upon us. Remember the courage of Jael, the wisdom of Deborah, and let us run forth as one, a people redeemed." Each clash of their swords became a declaration of God's might, resonating through the valley, echoing the promise that the Lord would deliver them. As the tumult of battle unfolded, the skies erupted in a storm, mirroring the turmoil of the fight below. It rained torrents, washing away the fear that threatened to encircle them. Confusion spread among the Philistines, panic igniting their souls. "What treachery is upon us?" they cried, as the chariots they once relied upon failed against the mud that now swallowed them whole. Victory belonged not to the might of man but to the promise of God. The Israelites surged forward under the divine banner, emboldened by their faith and the echoes of worship that lifted their spirits. In that moment, they knew freedom would not just come from the sword, but from their shared commitment to walk faithfully with their God amidst trials yet to come. As the battles raged on, hearts surrendered to the living God, for they understood that their journey was not just a series of victories but a covenant of faithfulness, a collective soul walking in holiness. United, they sought not simply to defeat foes but to draw ever closer to the God who called them to be his chosen people, transforming their hearts and their land one battle at a time. Dear friends, let us make a choice today. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that will strengthen your faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, reaching more souls yearning for truth. I invite you to share your spiritual reflections and how this story of deliverance impacted your journey of faith in the comments. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let us become vessels of hope and light, illuminating the world with the love of Christ.